Lemon in today for Brooke Baldwin. We are in breaking news coverage here on CNN. I want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and around the world. The breaking news is a mystery on Flight 370. We have just learned this new information, that the plane was way off course when it went missing. This information is coming to us from a senior Malaysian Air Force official. They have traced the last signs of the plane to a very small island in the Straits of Malacca. Now, if the Air Force information is correct, okay, this is huge. It means the plane had almost done a complete U-turn and was flying in the opposite direction from its scheduled destination. Beijing to the north. Also, the new information and indication here is of those two Iranian men who boarded this plane with stolen passports. One is 18, who was trying to join his mother in Germany. The other is 29 years old. He was trying to get to Denmark. Investigators say the men's motive appears to be illegal immigration and not terrorism. But the head of the Central Intelligence Agency says they're not ready to rule out other terrorism links to this plane just yet. Listen to this.
This is not the time to relax, because we know that there are terrorist groups that are still determined to carry out attacks, including especially against aircraft.
At this point, you're not ruling out that it could be
some sort of terror? Not at all.
So that was CIA Director John Brennan speaking as the search turns to the other side of the western part of the Malaysian peninsula. Again, this is new information just coming into CNN, and still no answers from distressed family members. Tensions boiling over between the families and representatives of Malaysia Airlines in Beijing today. So let's get more now on the latest developments here. CNN is learning the plane was far off of its course. I'm going to bring in Andrew Stevens. He's in Kuala Lumpur. Nick Robertson is in London for us. Andrew, to you first. Walk us through this new information. What does this mean?
Don, this information comes to us from a very senior Malaysian Air Force man. He can't reveal his identity. We can't reveal his identity because he's not authorized to speak to the press. But this is what we are hearing, and it does tie in with suggestions that have been floating around for the last couple of days. The plane took off from Kuala Lumpur. Its last known point where it was in contact with ground control was just as it was entering Vietnamese airspace from Malaysian airspace, and the information was being sent out via transponders. This is equipment which actually identifies the specific aircraft, so you know exactly what it is you're looking at. At that point, those transponders stopped working. We don't know why, but primary radar, which is a less sophisticated radar, which is being used both by civilian and by the military, continued to track this blip which the plane had now become. It turned, it did almost a U-turn and headed back towards Malaysia. Remember, this was an hour into the flight, so it's cleared the Malaysian mainland. It is now heading back towards Malaysian mainland. It continued to fly for another hour, perhaps a bit longer, across the Malaysian mainland to the other side of the west coast into the Straits of Malacca. And the last known sighting, the last known contact, when that blip was still on the radar screens, occurred over a very small island, which is roughly halfway between Malaysia and Sumatra, which is an Indonesian island. That's what we know. We don't know what happened next, but what it does mean is that the search area, which has already been included this area, but not to the same degree, we're expecting the search area now to be really the focus of this massive international search now. Some 47 aircraft and a similar number of vessels now searching. A lot of that material is going to be switched to this search area. That's what we're hearing.
Andrew Stevens in Kuala Lumpur. Stand by. I want to update our viewers again. New information into CNN. I want to welcome our viewers again from around the world. We're getting new information that this plane veered severely off course, and it appears that it had turned back to go to where it came from. That's new information coming into CNN. And according to a Malaysian official from the Air Force who declined to be named because he's not authorized to speak, he said the transponder apparently stopped working at about the time the flight controllers lost contact with the plane near the coast of Vietnam. And they believe that it kept flying this is again new information, for about an hour, hour and a half without any radar, without any instrumentation, or at least any evidence of where the plane might have been traveling. I want to go to Nick Robertson, who is now in London. Nick, here's some information that one official is saying, if this is correct, these are ominous signs that increasingly call into question whether someone in the cockpit might have deliberately steered the plane away from its intended destination.
It certainly appears that the plane couldn't have turned itself. Somebody must have done it, and potentially they may also have maliciously disconnected, turned off the transponder so that the plane could no longer be recognized for the plane that it was, still being picked up on primary radar. So it does leave this question very much open. We know that the police investigating say that they are looking at hijack, sabotage, personal issues or psychological issues with the crew or with the passengers on board the aircraft. But it really does open up again the possibility that there might be some kind of terror act. No one is introducing names of organizations. There's no credible or thoroughly corroborated claim of responsibility here so far. But it is known that Al-Qaeda likes to target aircraft. Al-Qaeda in Yemen has written about how people should train to become pilots and then drug the co-pilot to take control of the aircraft. This is speculation. We just don't know. We don't have the information. But somebody must have taken control of that aircraft, as you say, in the cockpit and turned it. And right now, we just don't know who that is. Tom?
Nick Robertson in London, I want you to stand by. Andrew Stevens in Kuala Lumpur, I want you to stand by as well, because I want to bring in Tom Fuentes. He's a CNN law enforcement analyst. He's joining us by phone. So, Tom, what do you make of this latest information about the positioning of this plane?
Hi, Don. Same thing everybody else is saying. You still can't rule out some partial mechanical failure, enough to eliminate communication maybe, but not enough to bring the plane immediately down. But you can't rule out either. The act of terrorism obviously appears to not be a catastrophic explosion, or the plane wouldn't be airborne for another hour and a half. But it could include somebody gaining access to that cockpit and taking over the controls, or forcing the pilot and co-pilot to fly where they wanted to fly, and disengaging the transponder at the same time. Maybe they were able to take control before they did that. And obviously they're already raising the issue about the mental health and stability of the pilot. So you have all of these are possibilities. It could still be mechanical, it could still be suicide, it could still be terrorism. It's as baffling as it ever was, other than now there's a new place to at least center the search upon.
We're looking at thousands upon thousands of miles of ocean there, if it turned around, and we have not heard from it. We have not heard anything from this plane. Could they possibly have landed somewhere, land somewhere, if this was indeed some sort of hijacking or a terrorist attack?
I've flown over those countries, Indonesia and Malaysia, many times, and there's dense jungle, there's volcanoes, mountains. It seems pretty unlikely to me, but pilots would know, the area geographically better than I would, but it seems unlikely they could find a safe place to put that aircraft down. It would need a reasonably long runway to do it. So, again, you still have the possibility that it could have gone down in a remote jungle area, and just the searches have been so far off target that nobody, has been looking in the right place. Experts, you have to respect their opinion of what that aircraft was capable of doing with partial electricity or, under those kind of circumstances. But as far as the law enforcement and intelligence people, I think that there's been too much made of what they said or what they didn't say or how they said it. I think Ron Noble yesterday in his press conference was basically trying to say that there was less suspicion on the two Iranians using the false passports, and that they individually may have looked less like terrorists. But that doesn't rule out the other 240 people on the aircraft, that were flying. It also doesn't rule out that the mysterious guy gave somebody a package to put in checked luggage that the passenger was unwitting and unknowledgeable of something bad about to happen. So that's always a possibility.
I want to give you the direct quote here. It says, if correct, the information that we're getting, these are ominous signs that increasingly call into question whether someone in the cockpit might have deliberately steered the plane away from its intended destination, and that is according to a former U.S. aviation investigator. Tom.
Okay, well, I would get him back on the phone and find out what he thinks now.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom Fuentes.
Because I don't know. It just doesn't, other people are saying that you've just had on the air, and Wolf Blitzer just had.
As many officials on the phone as we can. I want to just tell you the breaking news here on CNN. This is a mystery of Flight 370. We have just learned new information that the plane was way off course when it went missing. This is information that's just coming in from us, from the senior Malaysian Air Force official. It says they have traced the last signs of the plane to a very small island in the Straits of Malacca. If the Air Force information is correct, this is huge information. It means that the plane had almost done a complete U-turn and was flying in the opposite direction from its scheduled destination, Beijing to the north. I want to bring in now David Suchi in Denver. He is the author of Why Planes Crash and Accident Investigators Fight for Safe Skies, and a former FAA safety inspector. David, thank you. Good to see you today. We had a great conversation last night. This kind of changes a lot of what we talked about on the air last night. Given this new information, the plane was way off course when it lost contact. What does that tell you?
Well, it changes a lot from what we talked about last night. Excuse me. The people need to understand what it takes for a 777 to become invisible. Everything on that airplane is triple redundant. The electrical systems, the charging systems, the battery systems, communication systems, even the transponders are on completely separate buses. The chance that all the electrical system was out of that aircraft would have indicated a much more massive failure of some kind. So to think that all of that had to happen to make that aircraft invisible, to turn around and go the other direction, like you said, if this information is correct, really stands a lot to reason to me that someone forced those pilots to take control of the aircraft and take it off course.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the map now. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, the thought that someone in the cockpit, one of the pilots, took over is highly unlikely to me, for one reason, that typically in the past when that's happened, it was when one of the pilots had left the cabin to use the restroom, the door was locked, and then that other pilot took control. For that to have happened during that phase of flight where they were just going into Vietnam airspace is highly unlikely, because during that time you need both pilots to do the transition. You're doing cross-checks and double checks with each other during that transition time. So the thought that that happened seems unlikely to me.
Yeah. We had just a map up earlier, just a second ago, of the range. There it is right there, the range of where this plane could go. That's a maximum range with the amount of fuel that it had. And I don't know if you can see air, but looking at that, there is a lot of land and a whole lot of ocean, a whole lot of water where this plane could have landed or where it could have gone.
Right, right. And again, if we're relying on this, the secondary, the primary radar. The secondary radar is kind of like the Polo to the Marco. When primary radar is out looking, it can say, hey, I see something out there. But until you get the Polo back, which is the modest transponder, telling you, here's who I am, here's where I am, that's the secondary information that's missing. So from the cockpit, you can turn that off. What you can't turn off is the primary radar, which is going to tell you there is something out there. So I think with the search, you're right, that's a huge area where it could go. But if this information is correct, it's very significant indeed, and that would really narrow that search down. Without that, the chance of finding an aircraft, particularly if it didn't have an in-flight breakup and strewn material in a long direction, the chances of finding that aircraft are very, very slim.
It's about a 4,000-mile radius, and that's quite a bit of area there. You know, we talked a lot about ghost flights last night that you have investigated before, but I'm wondering if this even matters now. You've actually investigated them before. Can investigators learn something from these previous crashes? Do you think, in light of this new information, that that's even relevant anymore, David?
I'm beginning to think that it's less and less relevant as we go forward, and it's moving into a security area rather than an aviation issue. You know, I really believe that this is something that's beyond my expertise. We're looking more now at, just from what I know of the aircraft and where it's been and where it was headed, this information points directly to the fact that that aircraft moved by human hand. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It doesn't appear to me that there was any kind of massive breakup of the aircraft in flight. I'm leaning more and more towards handing this back over into the security area.